The chairperson of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme Board, Ernest Khosa, has resigned yesterday. In a letter to the Higher Education Minister, Nzimande, Khosa requested to be relieved from his role as a chairperson of the board, citing his continued security concerns and those of his family. Meanwhile, on the issues of non-payment, the scheme says it has completed most of its payments to universities as well as TVET colleges students for the 2024 academic year. It says that this was done against valid registration records received in March. However, some students say that they haven't received the April allowances. The South African Union of Students spokesperson, Asive Dlanjwa, is now joining us live. Asive, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, let's start with the decision by the minister to dissolve the entire board and also the resignation of Khosa just before that announcement was made.
Good morning, Aldrin, to you, your viewers and your listeners, and thank you for having us. We welcome with really much excitement the dissolution of the board of NSFAS, the reality that it has, presided over a state of chaos and instability at the scheme, and slowly but surely the credibility and the integrity of the scheme had beginning to wane incredibly. You will remember that about 2 days ago, we had also reached out to the minister regarding one board member who had also been in alleged corruption and receiving funds that they should not have received. So really, we have moved, we have been in a perpetual state of chaos and instability for the better part of the last year or so. It is a very much welcome decision, although we believe it's long overdue. We say it's long overdue because materially speaking, there is nothing that is materially dissimilar from what was from when we called for the dissolution of the board, for instance, from the 2nd of September last year, and right now, absolutely nothing has changed. We think that was overdue. The minister could have acted earlier on that and be able to ensure that as soon as possible we are able to save the credibility and the integrity of the scheme.
Yeah, and I think with all of this also, it is what happens to all of the investigations as well. The investigation, for instance, against the former board chairperson, the allegations that have been leveled against him. ALTA has also leveled similar allegations against the Minister of Higher Education. Do you think that the minister should also leave?
Look, as it pertains to the investigations, most definitely the investigations must carry on so that they reach a logical conclusion. This is taxpayers' money that we are speaking about, number one. Number two, nothing has changed from the fact that we do believe that there is an inability at DHET under the leadership of the minister to be able to conclusively and decisively lead the sector. We are seeing, as we have said before, stating our reasons, that one, the perpetual failure or rather chaos at NSFAS and instability is one significant for us to make that call. Secondly, the insubordination by institutions, especially when it came to the direct payment process. Up until today, there are no steps that the minister has taken decisively against those institutions which sought to undermine and sabotage the payment system and other processes of government. So those things for us and broadly an incoherent sector make us believe that there definitely could be a far much more decisive action and leadership that could be exercised at the level of DHET, not just at the level of the minister, across, by the way.
Yeah. So what are you saying about the minister? Do you think that he should stay in his position?
No, there's nothing materially, Aldrin, for us to say that the minister should stay. I mean, we had a position before, even the last time we spoke, calling that the minister must, excuse himself. We have not met and felt that, materially the things have changed and therefore the minister should remain. We have not taken such a position. So the last position which we took was that we believed that the minister was in over his head as it pertains to the leading and the leadership of the sector.
Yeah. But then what are the lessons that should be drawn from this particular experience, including, for instance, when the allegations were being made against the board members, the allegations that were made against the CEO as well, which had then been confirmed by an investigation by a law firm, and how quickly the minister is able to act on those decisions or those findings?
Sorry, repeat that again, Aldrin.
I'm also saying that if we look, for instance, what lessons would you say should be drawn from this entire experience? One, it is the investigation against the CEO, the findings against the CEO by the law firm, also the allegations against some of the board members, now former board members of NSFAS, and how quickly the minister is able to act.
A few things must be learned, and it's a very important question that you ask, because you will remember that this is not the first time that the minister is going to appoint an administrator at NSFAS, and it would seem that based on where we find ourselves, it's almost like a deja vu that we probably have not learned some very critical lessons. And some of those lessons, one, it speaks to the capacity and the capability and the credibility of the people whom we give responsibility to preside over state institutions. In this specific instance, it was clear that at the level of the board, it might have been a conglomerate of friends and not necessarily people who had the competency to preside over a 50 billion rand scheme. That on its own was a huge weakness. The second element would have been the people that would have been employed at NSFAS, particularly at the level of the executive. It is clear that it was a bunch of incompetent and inept people who did not also have the capacity to preside and be able to cater for the 1 million plus beneficiaries. And another third lesson we can learn is the decisiveness and the ability of the state to act as it pertains to its state institutions and state entities when they do not act in line. Decisive and timely action. And these are things that we did not see, because, as we have said, there is nothing that the minister has cited as his reason or will cite as his reasons at the press briefing on Sunday that are different, or that you do not know, that I do not know, that are not known and have not been experienced by the students on the ground. So one of the critical lessons there would be a decisiveness and timely action that must be taken by government through the Department of Education without wasting time. So those two things alone would be able to save us from some of the troubles which we have found ourselves engulfed in.
Yeah, and let's just quickly get a final update, the payments and the disbursement of allowances to students. What's the last update that you had received?
The last update that we have received is that the allowances would have been paid based on what NSFAS believes to have been the registration data, which is a perpetual state of irritation for ourselves, because NSFAS has a list of beneficiaries. And when you always, as it began to happen last year, you have thousands of students who have not received their allowances. NSFAS says, no, we don't have your names, we don't have your data. The institution did not send it to us. The institution, when you go to them, says, no, we send your name to NSFAS. NSFAS did not, we don't know why NSFAS did not give you allowances. So the discord and the incoherence between institutions and NSFAS, it also speaks to, which I said in the beginning, the inability of the department to lead and coordinate these state institutions. So that is the briefing we have from NSFAS, but we know for a fact, based on the students that are reaching out to us, that we are sitting with thousands of students that are still not receiving, have not received their allowances for March and February. But for April, I must just make a clarity here. There are students who are wanting their allowances for April. Allowances for April for colleges, they are due on the 25th of this month of April, and for universities, month end, which is the 30th. That is the payment cycle. So we awaited whether there will be timeliness or not. We are just concerned that the criminally appointed service providers are still presiding over and terrifying students when they were supposed to be terminated last year already. So that is what just is a serious concern.
Who will be joining us a bit later on to have that conversation, that is Ishmael Mnisi. Thank you so much for your time. That was the South African Union of Students spokesperson Asive Dlanjwa, following the decision that was taken by the Minister of Higher Education to dissolve the board of NSFAS, and also before that it was the resignation of the board chairperson. At around 8:15, we'll be in conversation with NSFAS as well as Wayne Duvenage from Outer. They are one of the main complainants against the board, including the minister.